Good day and welcome to this Focus On with me, Leopold Rademeyer. Over the past few years, there's been an increased demand for digital migration. Some parts in Africa have made significant strides in this area, but still have to deal with fundamental challenges like infrastructure, funding, and stable energy. What can the private sector do to help fill this gap and shape a digital future for Africa? Francine Katsodas, Executive Vice President and Chief People Policy and Purpose Officer at Cisco, joins me now for the United States of America to delve deeper into this. Good day, Francine.
Hi, Dewald. Nice to be with you.
Now, I'm looking at some of the facts on your broadband index, and the majority information I'm getting here is the participants feel that there should be a better connectivity available across the board, across Africa. But as Cisco's Chief People and Policy and Purpose Officer, you're also the company's executive sponsor for Africa, and at the same time, you serve on President Biden's Advisory Council on doing business in Africa. Now, what opportunities does your company see for Africa's digitization, and what can companies like yours do to help support this?
You know, I think you started in a very powerful place with the word connection. I think we know that around the world, people want to be able to connect to one another, to connect to education, to healthcare, to their work. And this is the starting point from a digitization perspective. And so, what we can do from a Cisco perspective is not only help people connect, which is what we've been doing for a very long time, but also we can work very hard to provide access to some of the digital skills training that we offer across Cisco. To date, we have trained almost 20 million students around the world. And this training allows them to get access to a career path in technology. And so, what we understand is that digitization starts with digital skills, with connections, and those two things together can truly enable the next wave of businesses. And so, that's where we've been focused from a Cisco perspective.
Now, it's also known that digital skills is in high demand, especially over the past few years with AI moving forward. Now, from a connectivity and digital skills, as you've mentioned, that you've providing that kind of training, how many governments across the continent do you find participate in this training facilities, and how are you working with government stakeholders?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think the training is one element and it leads to something much, much larger. So, what we have done from a Cisco perspective over the last about 9 years is we have worked with 50 countries around the world and about 1,600 projects, some of which are still underway. And these projects are really focused on how digitization can help a country reach some of the goals that they have for their administration and for their people. And so there's some really exciting examples on the African continent that I think demonstrate what is possible from a digitization perspective. One of those examples, and we're doing a bit of this in South Africa and in Egypt, is really leveraging digitization to streamline and, in some cases, expedite the justice system. And providing people with access from a video perspective allows the court to be much more efficient and effective and allows people to get their time in court a bit faster as well. That's one example of what digitization can do. Up and down the African continent, there are projects that we're running around how we help to connect schools, because we know that when schools are connected, they have the ability to reach additional students, to bring in expertise that's required, and to have a level of agility that candidly is really needed today. One other example is in South Africa. Not only are we focused on training, but the government wanted us to do more to provide training from a security perspective, knowing that this is something that would benefit both South Africa, but also the citizens of South Africa, given that today around the world, over 4 million jobs in security are left open because we don't have the talent that's required. And so these are some of the projects that we're running across Cisco.
I'm also to understand that you were in Africa not so long ago, inaugurating incubation centers. Can you tell me more about these goals?
Yeah, absolutely. These incubation centers, we call them edge centers, and they're really focused on the experience, how we help people learn to design, what go to market strategies look like. And so we have about 7 of these centers right now across the sub Saharan continent. And they are incubation centers that really help entrepreneurs build and create the skills and capabilities to grow their business and ultimately become partners of Cisco. And I will tell you, there are 2 new incubation centers that we opened in partnership with WOMHub. That's a partnership that we're incredibly excited about that allows us to really focus on women entrepreneurs as well. And what I experienced working from one of these edge centers for a good part of the last couple of months is that when you have entrepreneurs together with technology, and so we outfit these centers top to bottom with the latest and greatest technology and use cases. There are beautiful examples of intersections that I think create the businesses and investment opportunities for the future. And so this is what we're doing. We have some really amazing success stories that have come from this investment. There was one gentleman that I met about 5 years ago. When I met him, he had one employee, and he was really worried about whether or not he was going to make it. Now, 5 years forward, he has over 200 employees, and he's doing incredibly well. And I think that's an example of what our edge centers can do.
Are these the kind of innovations where you, as a tech company, focusing your innovations on? And what's some of the fruits of the labors of this benefit or the benefits in investing in Africa?
Gosh, there's so many benefits, but yes, what I would say to you is that I think around the world, the ability to provide incubation centers where entrepreneurs can learn and be mentored and scale their businesses, I think we all need this. And it really gives those that are just starting out a great opportunity to build and scale. But to your question, there's a win-win for for companies as well, and that win is that as these entrepreneurs scale, as they have success, we know that technology is going to be a big part of how they build. And so there are many examples that we have of entrepreneurs that have come to us and now run really large businesses. And a lot of those businesses are based on technology and they leverage Cisco technology as well. And so there's a system here that I think is really important to call out. And this is one of our beliefs at Cisco, which is you can be both good for the world and good for business. It was about 3 years ago that we established our purpose as a company, which is to power an inclusive future for all. And these edge centers are an example of how we really power that inclusive future.
Now you keep using the word purpose, and it's also in your title. How do you combine purpose and business?
Well, it's interesting because I think that purpose statement that I just mentioned is actually the example of how these come together. And so, what we're talking about is for every company, this question of how does purpose intersect your business? And so, given Cisco is a technology company that has been focused on connecting people, it was very natural for us to say the biggest impact we can have is really addressing that digital divide. And we do that in many ways, but two of the biggest ways are really through that focus on digital skills, because we know education can change the life of every human around the world. And then the second piece is really focus on the technology that allows connection. You know, what we know today is that on the African continent, only about 40% of people are connected. We know that in Europe and in the US, that number is closer to 80 to 90%. That's a huge opportunity and something that we have deep, deep expertise in. And so I would say for Cisco, that intersection of our business strategy and purpose really leads us to the digital divide. And I think for every company, thinking through that intersection is so critical.
Now, as we bring this conversation to a close, what trends have you noticed in a hybrid work environment? Do you see a decline overall, or do you see a hybrid work environment increasing in demand?
I will tell you that as I look more broadly across the industry, I see more companies, I would say, moving away from some elements of flexibility, because what they're trying to achieve is this connection and ensuring that their culture thrives. And I think the challenge for all of us is to achieve that while having some semblance of hybrid work because we know the benefits. In fact, some of the research shows that your employees that are working in a hybrid way are actually giving so much more. And we know that productivity in many industries increased as we went to working fully remote during the pandemic. And so, what I would say is there's a whole variety of ways that companies are working. And I think the best thing we can all do is really focus on the work and then put the practices in place that really drive the culture and the camaraderie that you're driving to.
I do want to talk to you just quickly about your next gen environmental sustainability strategy, because you can't talk about technology without touching on sustainability. What is your plan for possibility on that purpose?
Yeah, it's a big part of our purpose. And so when we look at our purpose and when we think about future, the future is really dependent upon having a healthy planet. And so some of the work that we've done at Cisco is really twofold. Since 2005, we have been reporting out from an environmental perspective and sustainability, sharing what we're doing as a company. And we have worked really hard internally to drive to renewable energy, to really decrease the use of plastics, to reuse recycled material in the creation of our technology. And so, really focusing on how we run. The second part is probably even more important, which is thinking about how our technology impacts and supports our customers and their own net zero goals. And so here we're really looking at the way in which we create technology in different ways. And so some of the work that we've done over the last few years through our Silicon One technology has dramatically reduced the energy consumption for our products while increasing bandwidth. And that is significant. And so when we look at these two together, which is really looking at how we design our technology, looking at how we run as a company, what we can see is tremendous impact that will make us a much more sustainable company long term, but also help our customers do the same, which is incredibly important to us. You know, the last point that I'll make here is that what we find is that employees and candidates that are assessing Cisco and other companies around the world, they want to know what you're doing in this space, and they also want to know what you're doing from a purpose perspective. And so while this is absolutely the right thing to do, we also view it as something that gives us an edge as it relates to getting access to the best talent around the world.
We all definitely want to know what everybody's doing to be more self-sustainable. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank my guest, Francine Katsodas, Executive Vice President and Chief People, Policy and Purpose Officer at Cisco, for unpacking Africa's digital future for us. Until next time, it's goodbye.